Parshas Bahar B'chukosai. This week's Parsha is a double Parsha. The Parsha of Bahar is joined with the Parsha B'chukosai. We'll talk about the Parsha B'chukosai this week. The first verse kicks off with the name embedded in it. Im B'chukosai telechu, if you will walk in my laws. Ve'es mitzvosai tishmeru v'asisemosam, and you will observe my commandments and you will perform them. Then all manner of good things will happen. I'll give you rain in its proper time, and the land will produce, etc. You'll have so much, you'll be satisfied, it will be peaceful. I'll get rid of the dangerous animals. Your enemies will collapse in front of you in ridiculous proportions, and I will turn to you, and you will multiply, and I will fulfill my covenant with you. You will have so much new produce that you'll have to figure out what to do with the old stuff. You'll have to take out the old in order to put in the new. Now let's look at this verse. This is Chavav Yud Aleph. That's 26:11. And I will place my sanctuary among you. V'lo sigal nafshi eschem, and my spirit, my will not reject you. What? I won't reject you? This appears to be kind of a flat ending to, I wouldn't quite call it a love story, but a declaration of encouragement. I won't reject you. So what is sigal nafshi eschem? What is that word, sigal? That's tough gimel ayin lamed. So Rashi says, ein ruchi katzavachem. My spirit will not abhor you. Kol ge'ilah. So this language of ga'al, with an ayin, not with an aleph. With an aleph it means redeem. Ga'al means reject. Lashon, this is Rashi, Lashon pleitas dover habalua b'dover. That denotes an expulsion or a rejection of something that's absorbed in something else. Kamo kishon nig'al magen giborim. This is talking about in Shmuel Beis that Rashi explains that the warriors used to have shields, protective plates that were made of very strong leather that was treated, and it was treated with oil so that the weapons of the enemy would not find it easy to grab onto, but rather it would be slick. And the language of Nig'al Magen Giborim is Lo Kibel HaMashicha. The material did not absorb the oil. Okay, that's a technical term. Now there are other references to that. There's Rashi in Iyov, Chaf Aleph Yod, that's 21:10. So he cites a Mishnah to support what the verse says, and he says, Magilin Baroschin, we do Hagala in boiling water. What's Hagala? So for those who have engaged in it in preparing for Pesach, or if somehow there's been a problem of kashrus, something a non-kosher got into a pot that was kosher, or he mixed meat and milk. So one of the ways you can fix this is with Hagala. Not all materials, but let's just say metal materials. You can do Hagala, which is you can either immerse the thing in boiling water or pour boiling water on it, depending on the nature of the absorption. And that will cause that which is absorbed to be to exude or to be rejected from the thing itself. So that's where the word Hagala. We also have this notion of Nefesh Goel, and we're going to see that this shows up in a number of places. Now we have, for example, the contrast here is Vimlo Tishmuli, and if you don't listen to me, V'lo tasu es kol mitzvot, and you don't do all of these mitzvot, so Im b'chukosai tim also, and if you reject my ways, the beginning it said Im b'chukosai telechu, if you walk in my ways. Now it says you reject them. Im es mishpatai tig'al nafshechem, and if my laws, your spirit or your will reject. Now, the Ramban, when this first notion of v'lo sigal nafshi eschem, my will not reject you, he says, what? I don't understand this. He says v'lo yadati, I don't understand, or I don't know. Ma tambose she'omar kadosh baruch hu gibishameinu kol mitzvos asosenu ritzono lo yemasos b'gol nafsho. That if we do everything he says, that he won't reject us. He says it seems to be contradictory to the verse later on that's Mem Daled, that's verse 42 in the same chapter, Va'af gam zos, and even despite all of this, B'osam be'eretz oivehem lo mastim v'lo ga'altim, when they're in the lands of their enemies, I will not reject them, and I will not abhor them, and I will not reject them. So the Ramban says it seems to be superfluous to say, I won't reject you when you're observing the mitzvos, if it says, I won't reject you when you're not observing the mitzvos. Well, there's an intervening section here, which is commonly referred to as the Tochacha, which is the portion of the Torah. There is a Tochacha in Kisavo, but here in Mechukosai, where there are horrific consequences that the Torah describes for not following God's ways. And they remind us of the worst of the calamities that have happened to the Jews over the centuries. Khmelnytsky, the Holocaust, the tortures of the Inquisition. One might even include the massacres of October 7th. And these are all described. I'm not attributing a cause and effect here to anything, but I'm saying that these are images that are conjured up of horrifying scenes that the Torah describes here as a consequence of the Jews abandoning the Torah. But it's not just the Jews abandoning the Torah, but it's rejecting the Torah. Go'al, if you reject, chukosai go'al lo nafsham, my commandments, their spirit has rejected. So the Ramban's question is, if all of this happens and you're still not rejecting us, so why are you telling me now at the beginning of this the introduction to all of this that you won't reject us? And there's several answers given, but what's interesting is that the Ramban just stops his quote of the contradiction here, and he doesn't include the entire verse, which is Va'af gam zos. This is verse 42, that even despite all of the horrifying events and the fact that we are cast away in exile outside of the land of Israel. Va'af gam zos, this is verse 44. B'osam be'eretz oivehem, when they, the people of Israel, will be in the land of their enemies, lo ma'astim v'lo ga'altim lechalosam. I will not reject them, I will not abhor them, and I will reject them to destroy them. Lo hafer brisi itam, and to nullify my covenant with them. In other words, some of them, before I should explain, you got to connect the dots here. But what the Torah is saying is, and the Akeidas Yitzchak and others talk about this, that there are degrees of rejection. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reject us. He has rejected us, but not completely. And what it means not completely is that we will never be destroyed. The people of Israel will never be destroyed. And the Mepharshim explain why. And they say, because even though we have rejected over the years much of the Torah and have assimilated to the point where the portion, the segment of the Jewish people that observes the Torah law is a minority. According to some, it's a small minority, somewhere between 10, 25%, if you include people who are traditional, and maybe as much as 50%. But especially outside of Israel, assimilation is rampant, and people simply do not care about their Jewish identity. However, so long as there are people who are still studying Torah, who still care about the Torah, who are still observing the Torah, God will not destroy us. And he's giving us an assurance that will happen, meaning that we will never abandon the Torah completely, and as a result, God will never abandon us completely. And the Mepharshim say, the commentaries point out, that one of the manifest miracles of existence is that the Jewish people, despite the calculated and deliberate attempts to wipe us out, we have survived, and we will continue to survive. And we have survived despite our enemies' attacks, and over the centuries, the enemies have not survived, but we have survived. And this is the result of the promise, explicit promise of God, that he will not destroy us. According to some Mepharshim, the promise is also that he will not switch his designation of the chosen people. Regardless of what we do, we are locked in. If we don't do what he says, we suffer. If we do what he says, we have a glorious future in front of us. And I would suggest that what we are witnessing in our day, despite all of the sorrows, despite all of the travail, what we are witnessing in our time, a return to the land of Israel, a return to speaking our native tongue of Lashon HaKodesh, of Hebrew, which has been preserved solely because we preserved the Torah. And as a result, the Torah preserved the language for us, and now the spoken language in the land of Israel is Lashon HaKodesh. is the Holy Tongue, is Hebrew. And in more recent years, we have even regained control and sovereignty over Makom HaMikdash, the place of the temple. May it be speedily rebuilt in our days. God made us a promise, and he's keeping it. And we are returning to Israel. And Israel is being rebuilt. And Torah is being rebuilt. There are thousands of people who are studying Torah, tens, hundreds of thousands, who are studying Torah, some full-time, some on a part-time basis, some just a few times a week, sometimes once a week, but the Torah has not left us, and we have not left the Torah. The consequence of that is that we not only are not rejected, but God fulfills his promise to us, and he brings us back to the land of Israel. And God willing, we will soon see the complete redemption of our people. Have a good Shabbos.